This is the second of two fascinating interviews with Karen Gedney, an MD who spent 30 years as a doctor in a prison in Nevada. Her book about her experience is a powerful testimony to one woman's dedication to patients whose lives were not often touched with either compassion or understanding. The description of her life there and the positive changes she tried and often did accomplish successfully are recorded in her book, 30 Years Behind Bars. One interesting fact was that when she entered the prison system in Carson City, where she lived, there were no black people residing there except her husband, who was black. But in the prison where she worked, it wasn't quite the same.
Have the audience just imagine, I lived in Carson City, which back in those days, capital of Nevada, maybe we had 40,000 population, and there were no black people in this population. I mean, none, except when I moved here, my husband was black, right?
And so, yes, that's right.
Right. So here I have the only black person in this entire city, basically. And I get thrown into the prison to be their prison doctor because the government put me there. And I walk into the prison and I realize, wow, about 1 out of 4 of my patients are black men. And where'd they come from? I mean, there's no, wow. I mean, we're talking no. And then I found that they were basically shipped up from Las Vegas, or some filtered in through Reno, which is about 45 minutes from Carson City. But the thing is, in Nevada, we had population-wise, the entire state, like Las Vegas, you include maybe 6% black population. But in the prison, it was more like 25-30%. So it was a good 5 times overrepresented. And that just struck me.
From almost the beginning of her career, higher-ups in her prison were determined to get her out. And very soon, a sham investigation began. One complaint saying she was prejudicial towards black prisoners because her husband was black. The prison authorities had chosen suppression and control over concern for the prisoners' inherent humanity, despite the errors of life that typically had gotten them there. I have seen so much in your book, but I'm going to ask you a question. Of all these obstacles and all these things that happened to you, what was the most difficult part of your job?
My most difficult part of my job was trying to give appropriate medical care in a compassionate way that I felt was very important. And the people who controlled the prison many times looked at compassion as a security threat.
Right.
That is, and I understand their piece, where they are responsible for security. They are responsible for looking at someone and looking at the worst outcome. Like, okay, they're saying something, but is there some ulterior bad motive? Mm-hmm. On the side of medicine, if someone, and they can be the worst manipulator, bad guy, but if they tell me they've got whatever, belly pain, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I do not want to miss something serious, whether it's an appendicitis or a tumor or something like that. And to me, the hardest thing for me in the prison was my orientation was like 180 degrees opposite a security's perspective. They look for the worst that could happen. I look for the best that can happen.
One of the troubling injustices back then, and currently as well, targeting primarily the poor, was the need to raise bail to get out of jail before trial. If you could not afford it, you might sit in jail until you received the recommendation to plead guilty just to get the whole thing behind you. But if you did, despite the presumably lighter sentence, thereafter you were stuck with a job-resistant felony conviction to follow you around the rest of your life. Although things were challenging, Dr. Gedney could work fairly tranquilly within and without the prison walls. Then, after some troubled contact with a disturbed but very intelligent prisoner named Moth, who targeted her emotionally and ultimately sexually, he took her hostage. Her final encounter with this highly damaged ex-Marine who was saved from a death sentence through a Supreme Court's fortuitous ban on execution led to his explosive termination during her rescue. This incident revealed to her the very real danger of working in an often poisonous male environment, but she still didn't give up until she retired from the prison system years later. In one sense, what happened to her was not so impossible given the everyday state of mind of many prisoners. In fact, serious mental illnesses are common in prisons in this country, many provoked by the unforgivable and brutal crime of putting people in solitary confinement for long periods of time, even life. Join us now for an exciting and enlightening interview with Dr. Karen Gedney, author of 30 Years Behind Bars and currently a popular speaker on prison reform.